After 12 years of marriage, I thought I knew what betrayal felt like. Until I came home one freezing night to find the door locked, my phone buzzing with a single message from my wife. "You had your chance." I sat there on the porch, heart pounding, breath fogging in the dark, not realizing that the woman who opened her door to me next already knew the secret that would shatter everything. That our spouses were having an affair, and they had a plan to take everything from us. But what they didn't know was, we had a plan of our own. What happened next was rather shocking. I will tell you everything. First, let me thank you for your continuous support. If you love stories like this one, support us by subscribing to this channel and comment where you are watching us from. It will be great to hear from you. Now let's jump into the details of what happened. It had been one of those raw, biting days where the cold sank straight through your bones and settled in your joints. I'd spent the last hour stuck in traffic behind a wreck on I-85, my fingers frozen stiff on the steering wheel despite the heater wheezing on full blast. By the time I pulled into our driveway, the last shred of daylight had disappeared, and the porch light, like always, was off. Leah never remembered the porch light. Or maybe she did, and just didn't care anymore. I stepped out, already bracing against the wind, juggling my briefcase, my gym bag, and the dry cleaning I had picked up because Leah had texted me midday that she didn't have time. I remember thinking maybe, just maybe, tonight would be different. Maybe she'd say thank you. Maybe she'd have made one of those frozen lasagnas she used to throw in the oven before she stopped cooking altogether. Stupid hopes, really. When I reached the front door and turned the knob, it didn't budge. Locked. At first, I figured she'd just forgotten I was coming home late. No big deal. I pulled out my phone and texted her. "Hey, locked out. Can you let me in?" I waited, stamping my feet against the porch, breath fogging up the night air. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed. Just one line. "You had your chance." That was it. No explanation. No follow-up. My hands went numb, but not from the cold. I read it twice, then a third time. My stomach dropped like I had stepped off a cliff. I knocked hard, then pounded. Nothing. Lights were on inside, so I knew she was there. But she didn't come. Didn't even flinch behind the curtains. I called. Straight to voicemail. I stood there another 30 minutes before it was clear. She wasn't going to open the door. She wanted me out. Not for the night. For good. I sat down on the top porch step, wrapped my coat tighter around myself, and rested my head in my hands. My entire marriage had been eroding slowly over the past year. No blow-ups, just indifference that grew like mold between us. But I never thought she'd actually lock me out. Not like this. That's when I saw the porch light across the street flicker on. Dana, our neighbor. She opened her door just a crack, then a little wider. She didn't wave, didn't call out. Just stood there, looking at me. After a few seconds, she motioned for me to come over. I hesitated. We weren't exactly close. I'd barely exchanged more than a few neighborly greetings with her since she and her husband Rick moved in 3 years ago. But in that moment, cold and humiliated, I didn't have much pride left. I crossed the street. Dana didn't say anything as I stepped inside, just handed me a towel to dry off and a pair of thick socks. I muttered a thank you, and she nodded, still silent, her eyes distant. I noticed her husband wasn't home. She finally spoke, her voice low. "You can stay in the guest room tonight." I started to say something, an apology, maybe, or an awkward explanation, but she cut me off. "One condition." I looked at her, confused. "You have to lie to Rick," she said, not blinking. "If he asks, you were here to fix the garage heater." I blinked. "What?" "I'll explain later," she said, turning away. "Just promise me." I should have left right then. Should have told her no and found a hotel or slept in my car. But something in her voice, it wasn't a request. It was a warning. I nodded. "Okay." And just like that, the trap snapped shut. The next morning, I woke up to the faint clink of dishes in the kitchen and the smell of burnt toast. Dana wasn't much of a cook. She said so herself when I thanked her for the instant coffee and the barely edible eggs. She just shrugged, handed me a mug, and said, "Eat quick. Rick gets home in 30. No small talk. No check-in about what had happened the night before. Just business." I sat at her little round kitchen table, still wearing the same clothes from yesterday, my body aching from sleeping on a mattress that had definitely seen better days. The silence between us stretched thin, but I didn't ask any questions. Mostly because I didn't want to hear the answers. I kept thinking about Leah's text. You had your chance. Over and over. What the hell did that even mean? My chance to be what, better? Louder? Less predictable? Dana was pacing now, restless. She looked tired, like she hadn't slept either. He's going to ask why you were here, she said finally, turning to face me. Just say you came over last night to help with the heater in the garage. Say you stayed late and fell asleep on the couch. That's it. You really think he'll buy that? I asked. Dana raised an eyebrow. He'll buy it if you sell it. I wanted to ask her more, why she needed me to lie, what exactly was going on in her house. But before I could, I heard the sound of a car pulling into the driveway. Dana snapped into motion. She took my plate, wiped down the table, then tossed my coat into the laundry room, and threw me a hoodie from a pile of old clothes near the back door. Put that on, she whispered. Make it look casual. I was still adjusting the sleeves when Rick walked in. He was one of those guys who always seemed a little too cheerful in the morning. Big voice, big smile, big presence. Well, he laughed, setting his keys down. Look who finally showed up to fix that damn heater. I forced a smile. Yeah, sorry. Got a little late, didn't want to drive. Rick didn't even blink. No worries, man. Appreciate you doing it. Dana told me you're good with tools. I met Dana's eyes briefly. She looked away. For the next 20 minutes, we played house. Rick made himself a sandwich. I pretended to look at the garage unit with a flashlight Dana handed me, and Dana floated around like she hadn't orchestrated the whole scene like a damn director. The weirdest part? Rick didn't seem suspicious at all. Not of me, not of her. If anything, he seemed relieved, like he needed to believe the lie we were feeding him. But the act got harder the longer it went on. Especially when Rick clapped me on the back and said, You know, I was telling Leah just the other day, we should do another couple's night. It's been, 6 months? My mouth went dry. You two were always good to us, Rick added. Leah's had a rough patch lately. Said you guys were working through some things. Dana froze. I just nodded. Yeah, something like that. After Rick left the room, Dana leaned in and whispered, They talk about us. All the time. I turned to her, confused. Who does? Leah and Rick, she said. Her voice was hard now. They think we're clueless. They sit in that bar 2 towns over every Thursday like no one will notice. But I've seen them. Heard them. She pulled out her phone and opened a file. Audio. Rick's voice, clear as day, saying Leah's name. Laughing. Calling her baby. My blood ran cold. Dana looked at me, something bitter flickering behind her eyes. You're not just crashing on my couch, Marcus. You're part of this now. They wanted to make us look like fools. I say we make them pay for it. I stared at her, the weight of what she'd just said crashing into me like a truck. I had come over thinking I'd just sleep off a bad night. But this wasn't about a cold bed or a locked door anymore. This was war. I didn't go home that night. The thought of walking back into that house, our house, felt like standing under a roof you knew was about to cave in. I stayed in Dana's guest room again, but I barely slept. My mind kept circling the same questions. How long? Why him? And what did Leah mean to do with me once I was out of the picture? Because that's what this felt like now, like I was being erased. By morning, Dana was already up. She handed me a mug of coffee like we were soldiers in the same foxhole, and said, You ready to hear everything? I nodded. I didn't say a word. I just followed her into the living room, where she pulled out a red folder from beneath the couch cushions. Inside were screenshots, receipts, a flash drive. She placed it all on the table in front of me like it was evidence in a courtroom. She approached me 6 months ago, Dana said. Leah said she wanted out. Said she was tired of playing house with you. That she and Rick were soulmates. She practically spat the word. But then she said something else. She said she wanted to make sure neither of you got screwed in the divorce. I frowned. Neither of us. Dana gave a dry laugh. Yeah, she meant her and Rick. My stomach twisted. I looked down at the papers she'd spread out, printouts of emails between Leah and Rick, most of them mundane. See you Thursday. Get room 418 again. But one caught my eye. Marcus is oblivious. He still thinks this marriage has a pulse. Once I get him out, the equity's mine. You handle Dana. I read that line twice. Then again. I couldn't even breathe. Dana kept talking. She thought she was being slick. Told me she was worried about you. Said you were unstable. That if the split got ugly, You might get violent. She wanted me to document everything, every argument, every mood swing. Said she needed a witness in case it came to court. Jesus, I whispered. Yeah, that's when I started playing dumb. Dana folded her arms. And recording. She handed me the flash drive. On there, you'll find two things. First, Leah's saying she wants to bleed you dry. Second, Rick saying he's fine with throwing me under the bus if it means he walks away clean. I shook my head slowly, trying to absorb it all. Why are you showing me this? Dana's voice dropped low. Because I'm not going to be humiliated. I'm not going to be the sad wife sitting in court while they split up our lives like we were obstacles instead of people. And you want revenge? She stared at me like I'd just asked if fire was hot. No, I want justice. I want them to look at us the way we've looked at them, like we can't believe who the hell we married. She leaned forward, her eyes burning with something colder than rage. We fake it. We play the part. You go back home. Act like you want to make things work. Buy her flowers. Talk about therapy. And I'll do the same with Rick. And then, Dana smiled, thin and sharp. Then we take everything. It felt dangerous. It was dangerous. But beneath all the fear and confusion and humiliation, there was something else simmering in me. Relief. Finally, someone saw what I saw. Someone believed me. I stood up, nodded once, and said, let's burn it down. The first time I kissed Leah after finding out the truth, I wanted to vomit. She came home late, again, around 10:45 p.m., claiming she was just grabbing drinks with her sister. I stood there in the kitchen, wiping down an already clean counter, and smiled like a damn puppet. She looked at me, paused, then kissed me on the cheek like we were normal. Like she hadn't just spent 3 hours with a man she called baby in her emails. And I kissed her back, full on the mouth. Soft. Intentional. She pulled away, confused at first, then surprised, then charmed. You okay? She asked, brow raised, suspicious but curious. I gave her a little shrug. I've just been thinking. About us. I know things have been rough. I want to work on it. Her eyes flickered with something, hesitation, maybe even guilt, but it passed quickly. Well, that's unexpected, she said, stepping around me and opening a bottle of wine. But okay. She wanted to believe it. They both did. That was the beauty of it. The next morning, Dana texted me a photo of Rick asleep in their bed with a whiskey bottle still in his hand. He asked if I'd be okay with a fresh start. We're in. We kept it quiet, careful, methodical. No late-night strategy meetings, no angry venting sessions in public. We spoke via burner phones Dana picked up from a gas station off Route 54. Everything written was deleted immediately. I didn't even save her number in my phone. I had to stay convincing, which meant going back into my marriage with the same sincerity I'd once fought for it with. Only now, it was a performance. And God, I hated how good I was at it. I started cooking again. Picked up her favorite Thai food. I offered to take a weekend off work to visit her parents. She declined, but I could see the mental wheels turning. Was I really that dumb? Did I suspect anything? She didn't know I'd already seen the receipts Dana printed. Hotel reservations, joint credit card charges, and a PayPal transaction from Leah to Rick labeled Car Fix. Even though Rick never touched a wrench in his life. We didn't need to guess anymore. We knew. By the third week, we had enough to detonate. Dana worked a contact of hers, her cousin Lyle, into the plan. He was a freelance financial investigator who dabbled in ethics-challenged opportunities. Dana had Rick convinced Lyle was starting a new venture that promised easy returns on silent investing, just for close friends. Rick, the idiot, jumped at the bait. Meanwhile, I started bleeding the joint account. Not recklessly, strategically. Groceries? Paid with my personal account. Gas? Same. I started moving paychecks into a revocable trust my friend, a divorce attorney, helped me set up quietly under my name. The trust wouldn't even show up until the divorce was finalized, if it ever came to that. At home, I kept playing the role. I'd bring Leah tea, watch Netflix on the couch beside her like old times. Sometimes she'd even curl up next to me, like muscle memory made her forget she was planning to destroy me. Other nights, she'd be cold, distant. Guilt gnawing at her edges, maybe, or resentment that I wasn't breaking down the way she wanted me to. One night, she stood in the doorway of the bedroom, arms folded. "You've changed," she said quietly. "Yeah," I answered, not looking up from my book. "I've had to." She didn't respond, just stood there, then finally turned and walked away. That was the thing. She didn't want me to change. She wanted me to unravel, wanted the martyr role all to herself. And the longer I held it together, the more nervous she got. 3 days later, Dana called. "Time to pull the pin." "What happened?" I left my iPad unlocked on purpose. "Rick found the email draft I wrote myself, addressed to you, about how I can't do this anymore, not with them watching us." She paused. "He's losing it. You're officially a threat." I didn't like it. "What if he comes after you?" "He won't," she said, her voice steel. "But if he does, I'm ready. I've got 2 friends staying at the house. He won't make a move." "You sure?" "I've been sure since the day she asked me to betray you," Dana said. "Now we make sure they fall apart before they can recover." It started small. I let Leah find a receipt in my jacket pocket for a restaurant I hadn't mentioned. It was nothing, just a lunch with a colleague. But her reaction told me everything I needed to know. "Who's Maya?" she asked one night, slamming the receipt on the kitchen table. I blinked. "You went through my pockets?" She didn't answer. She was too busy unraveling. "Maya's a guidance counselor," I said calmly. "We had lunch." "What?" "Because you've been weird lately. Secretive. And now what?" "You're seeing someone." The irony almost made me laugh. Instead, I said, "Funny. You said the same thing when you locked me out that night." She looked stunned. For a second. Then defensive. "That night was a mistake. You just weren't trying anymore." I nodded slowly. "Maybe. But I'm trying now. Or not." She didn't answer. She didn't need to. Meanwhile, Rick lost 10 grand in the business deal with Lyle. Just enough to sting. Just enough to shake his confidence. He confronted Dana 2 nights later, screaming about betrayal. She played confused, acted like maybe he had done something wrong. She cried, told him she didn't know who he was anymore. Rick stormed out. 2 hours later, Leah called him. On speaker, Dana recorded the whole thing. "We need to get our ducks in a row, Rick," Leah said. "He's acting different. I think he knows. We can't afford to screw this up." "What do you want me to do, Leah?" "I already gave your guy 10 grand. Just hold the line. We'll play dumb. Get what we came for." And just like that, we had it. Intent, collusion, financial misconduct, and enough digital evidence to paint them as manipulative and premeditated. But it wasn't enough for Dana. "We need to crush their confidence," she said. "Let them know the walls are closing in before we finish it." So I left my phone unlocked near Leah one night with a text notification from Dana, a vague message. "He doesn't suspect. Let's move this forward." She read it. I know because she didn't speak to me for 2 full days. On day 3, she broke down crying in the living room, telling me she felt disconnected, that she didn't know how we got here. I sat beside her, held her hand, and lied through my teeth. "We'll figure it out." She sobbed, apologized for the distance, told me she loved me. And in that moment, watching her crocodile tears soak into the couch, I realized how far gone she really was. She didn't love me. She loved winning. The next morning, Dana called one last time. "We've got what we need," she said. "You ready to break the glass?" I was. Because this wasn't just about cheating. This wasn't just about betrayal. This was about the kind of people who destroy others and call it strategy. The kind who turn marriages into schemes and houses into battlegrounds. It was time for them to learn what it felt like to be on the losing side of the lie. It started with a knock on Rick's office door. Dana had arranged it perfectly, timed to hit right after his weekly sales meeting. She'd been waiting for the moment when his co-workers were still lingering in the hallway, sipping cheap coffee and trading war stories about clients. When the server handed Rick the manila envelope with her initials scrawled across the top in red ink, I imagine he thought it was a joke, something flirtatious, or maybe a subtle warning. But when he opened it, when he pulled out the photos, the printed transcripts, the signed affidavit from Lyle about the fraudulent investment Rick Singleton knowingly entered into, something inside him cracked. Dana told me later his hands started to shake. He didn't say a word, just walked into his manager's office and closed the door. He was gone by lunch. Officially? Personal leave. Unofficially? Everyone knew something big had happened. Dana's name was all over the documents. The tone of the memo was clear. This wasn't just a messy divorce. It was a legal firestorm. Rick texted Dana that night. "I hope you're proud of yourself." She didn't respond. Leah found out the next morning. I was sitting at the kitchen table, casually flipping through the mail while she poured her third cup of coffee. She looked fragile, frazzled in a way she rarely let herself be. Her hair was pulled into a half-hearted bun, eyeliner smudged like she'd been up all night. When she scrolled through her phone and saw the post Dana had shared, a vague but perfectly worded piece about trust, betrayal, and finally reclaiming peace after deception, her breath caught. Then she saw the comments. Mutual friends, neighbors, even Rick's own sister chiming in with, "About time someone said it out loud." Leah slammed her phone down on the counter. "Did you know she was going to do that?" she hissed. I looked up from my mail. "Do what?" She stared at me for a long time, then said, "You've been talking to her. Don't lie." I set the envelope down and folded my hands calmly. "She's our neighbor. Of course I talked to her. So do you. Or used to. Before you tried to destroy both of us." Her mouth opened, then closed. That silence. That was the sound of her game falling apart. She left the house that afternoon. Said she needed air. I let her go. I didn't ask where. I didn't care. I'd already forwarded the final files to my lawyer. Proof of infidelity, financial collusion, and intentional misrepresentation in marital agreements. Enough to invalidate any prenup loopholes and give me full leverage in the divorce proceedings. Dana had done the same on her end. That night, Leah came home drunk. I could smell the vodka before I even saw her shadow in the doorway. She stumbled into the kitchen, slammed a cabinet door, then stood there, swaying slightly, as if summoning the courage to speak. "You played me," she said, slurring the words. I stayed seated on the couch, not bothering to hide my disgust. "No, I saw you for who you really were. There's a difference." "You don't understand," she snapped, suddenly awake. "You never listened to me. You never cared what I needed." "Was it Rick?" I asked. "Was he what you needed?" She flinched. "Then she did something I'll never forget," she laughed. This guttural, broken thing, like all her lies, had finally collided and exploded inside her. "You were always so boring," she muttered. "Safe. Predictable. I needed more." I stood up, walked over to her slowly. Not menacing, just deliberate. "And now you have nothing." She looked up at me, tears brimming. "You think you're some kind of hero in all this." "No," I said. "I just stopped being the fool." 2 days later, the gossip started to spread. A parent at the school I worked at asked if I was okay. Said they'd heard something about marital issues. I nodded, kept it professional, but inside, I was boiling. Leah had started damage control, telling her version of the story before mine could get out. That afternoon, I opened Facebook and saw her post. A black and white photo of us from 2 years ago, captioned, "Sometimes love isn't enough. Please respect our privacy during this painful time." Broken heart. I nearly threw my phone. I wanted to scream, to reply, to post every text, every receipt, every email. But Dana had warned me, let them bury themselves. Don't jump in the grave with them. So I waited. 36 hours later, Dana's friend, one of those social media watchdog types, posted a carousel of screenshots. Messages between Leah and Rick. Hotel bookings. A voice memo labeled "They won't see it coming." And people turned. The comments flooded in. "This is disgusting. How do people like this sleep at night?" Wait, Leah did that? With Rick? It was brutal. And exactly what they deserved. That weekend, Leah showed up at my apartment. I'd already moved out, quietly, a week earlier. My lawyer advised it would strengthen my position, prove I wasn't escalating tension in the shared home. She hadn't noticed until she came home one night and found my side of the closet empty. Now she was at my new place. Alone. No makeup. Hair pulled back like she'd stopped trying. I opened the door. Didn't invite her in. She looked at me like a stranger. "You really did it," she said softly. I waited. "You made me look like a monster. You didn't need my help with that." She nodded slowly, looking down at her hands. I didn't love him. Not really. It just felt exciting. Like I had control again. I didn't respond. She looked up, eyes rimmed red. "I messed up." "Yeah," I said. "You did. I don't expect you to forgive me. Her voice broke. "I didn't think you'd fight back. Not like this." I almost laughed. "You thought I'd cry on the porch again?" I asked. Sleep outside like a dog while you built a new life with my neighbor's husband? Her lips trembled. I was angry. I thought you gave up on me. I didn't give up, I said, my voice like steel. I got smart. She nodded again. No defense. No more excuses. Just shame. She reached out like she wanted to touch my arm. I stepped back and closed the door. Across town, Dana filed the final paperwork the same day I did. We didn't celebrate. We didn't toast or send victory texts. There was nothing to celebrate. Because revenge doesn't heal. It doesn't reverse time or restore trust. But sometimes, it's the only way to stop the bleeding. Rick moved out a week later. Quietly. Leah, last I heard, was staying with a friend until she could find something cheaper. Her accounts were frozen. Her reputation was tattered. She applied for 3 jobs and was rejected by all of them. And me? I went back to work. I built a new budget. I started over. Not stronger. Just clearer. Wiser. I stood in the middle of my 1-bedroom apartment the morning the divorce was finalized, staring at the little metal plaque next to the door. It just said Unit 3B. No name, no mailbox slot, no trace of the life I'd built before everything cracked open. And for the first time in months, I breathed without bracing for the next hit. I didn't cry. I didn't smile, either. I just stood there still. The email from my lawyer came at 8:03 a.m. Judgment entered. Divorce finalized. Assets divided as outlined. Trust preserved. It was done. No appeals. No more mediation. No more pretending. Leah was officially my ex-wife. And Rick? Gone too. Dana hadn't heard from him in weeks. Not since his sister posted a family update online with a single line at the end. Rick is taking some time away to reflect. That's what they say when someone's reputation is radioactive and they need to disappear quietly. His career was toast. Last Dana heard, he was staying in a rental 3 counties over, sleeping on a buddy's couch, and trying to liquidate what little he had left. Dana and I hadn't spoken in almost a week, not out of avoidance, just necessity. We'd done what we came to do. There was a certain dignity in stepping away without dragging it further. We hadn't been friends before the storm, and we weren't pretending to be now. We were co-conspirators, survivors, something even deeper than friendship in a way, but also more complicated. She did leave me a voicemail, though, just a few days earlier. Hey, don't know if you're ever going to call back, and that's okay. I wanted to say thank you for trusting me, for holding the line. We did what we had to do, and maybe someday that'll mean something more than what it was. I hope you find peace, Marcus. We both deserve that. I didn't reply, not because I didn't care, but because some endings don't need more words. They just need space to settle. I thought a lot about that phrase Leah sent me. You had your chance. It stuck in my head like a splinter. At first, it made me feel small, like I had failed, like I'd been given something precious and fumbled it in the dark. But the longer I sat with it, the more I realized it was never about me having a chance. It was about her not wanting to give me one. About control, manipulation, performance. She was rewriting the story long before I knew there was one being written behind my back. And I had taken that chance, not to beg or chase or prove my worth, but to see things clearly, to act, to survive. People love to talk about forgiveness like it's a virtue we should all aspire to. Like letting go is always the higher ground. But I don't believe that anymore. Not entirely. Because some things have to be faced, called out, lit up so everyone can see the wreckage. And then you let it go. But not before. A week after the papers were signed, I ran into Leah at a grocery store near my old neighborhood. I almost turned around when I saw her in the cereal aisle, looking at a box of granola like it held the answers to her shame. She looked thinner, tired. There was no fire left in her eyes. She saw me. We locked eyes. And for a moment, just one moment, I saw the version of her I used to know. The one I took to Sunday farmers markets and slow jazz nights at that rooftop bar. The one who'd lie beside me, tracing the lines on my chest with her finger, saying, I don't want to wake up anywhere else. That version was gone now, burned up in the choices she made. But I nodded, politely, and kept walking. No need for a scene. No need for words. I didn't know her anything anymore. Now, I wake up in the quiet. I walk to work. I cook meals for one and play records on a dusty turntable Dana recommended I buy. Said it helped her remember who she was before the lies began. I go to therapy. I journal. I rebuild. It's not glamorous. It's not triumphant. But it's real. And real, after months of deception, is enough. Have you ever looked someone you loved in the eyes and realized they were never who you thought they were? What would you do if your partner and neighbor plotted to destroy your life? Would you walk away quietly, or would you fight for your dignity like Marcus did? Tell me your thoughts in the comments. And if you've ever survived a betrayal like this, your story might help someone else see the truth they've been too afraid to face. Subscribe for more raw, real stories of what happens when trust is shattered and strength takes its place.